welcome back to PA Truck Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Matrixx. How are we doing?
Good, brother. How you doing today?
I'm good. Is it? How do you say your name? Because I
Yeah, it's
don't. I hate getting people's
yeah.
name wrong.
No, it's Matrixx, like the movie with
It's
two X's, way cooler. I'm
cool.
biased.
I'm biased. No, that's perfect. Before we get going, if you just let us know who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are. Have you ever wondered how I'm able to run my business, my podcast, and still be able to coach? Well, I use TeamBuilder. TeamBuilder is an all in one coaching software that reduces the amount of time that we spend on the back end of programming, on our Google Sheets, on our Excels, and allows me more freedom to do testing. With this podcast and episodes, I'm actually able to run some programs that I learned through different coaches coming on. To find out how you can use TeamBuilder and how it can apply to your own program, visit the link in the description and catch yourself a 30-day free trial. Just simply use code PACHOCUP, that's PACHALQUP, and start the next stage of your coaching career.
Absolutely. So I'm the director of strength conditioning here at Iron Performance Center. I'm also the owner of the company. We have athletes and people from all walks of life, different demographics, different levels of sport, whether it be the youth, high school, collegiate, pro. We train a lot of awesome people, and that's what we hang our hat on. Very purposeful, very systematic, and obviously we just get after it, have a lot of fun too, right? So it's been a crazy journey. I think we've been doing this now. We started back probably 7 or so years ago. Decided to go on our own, but yeah, it's been a wild ride, and met some awesome people along the way. And we just want to keep hustling that way, right? Like
Yeah,
we're trying to build better athletes right here in the Niagara region in St. Catharines, Ontario, but also across our province and across the country, obviously too, right? We want more people, being able to demonstrate their skills at a higher level, at highest levels of competition against better people. So that's what we're about.
nice. I love that. And it kind of ties into a conversation that we were having off on Instagram, and it's creating that freedom for yourself to not only just do multiple sports, like you could literally have Olympic plus football, baseball, basketball. So how is that sort of transitioning from like a team or sports
Yeah.
setting to like now running more your private stuff where people reach out to you and want to better that
Yeah.
performance for themselves?
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference is I honestly think this industry is more of a relationship industry. Like, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, it's not like the sets and reps don't matter. They all do, and all that stuff matters. But we're dealing with humans, right? And especially in the private side of things, you have to be able to sell yourself and the result. Like, this is a results driven business, right? Like, they come in with a goal or aspiration, whether it be to get a D1 scholarship, whether to make an Olympic team, whether to, get a pro contract. So that is the initial reaction, and that's the initial confrontation is going to be like, hey, we're here to get you that result, and here's how things we're going to try to do to get us as close to the mark as possible. But then as you get deeper into the weeds, it's going to be about building that connection. Like, do they trust you enough, right, over time to actually put in the effort and the intent, right? And we're big on the saying, we use a saying, you have to earn your digging rights. So you can have all the tools, all the materials, you can have this beautiful, plan for this building put in place, but if you don't get your permits, you can't start digging. You know what I mean? So that's where that trust comes in. You have to be able to establish a positive relation with the athlete or the person that you're working with so they can better do the things you're asking them to do, right? It's not just what we do, it's how we do it, and understanding why we're doing things and understanding that trust between people. It's going to drive the intent so they can better achieve the what, if that makes sense, right?
100%.
Um,
That's exactly my principles and philosophies as well. As in an industry where we're getting paid to give results, like like you can write the best program, you can have the best metrics, but if that athlete doesn't trust what you're saying and doesn't, or it just doesn't like you in general,
yeah,
like your program's going to die pretty soon. And I think when you are sort of married to these systems where everything's performance and you just have to do everything that I say, like it becomes hard to, especially for the athlete, to be like, yeah, this is the growth environment that I need.
it's really like you can't just hang your hat on this pretty Excel document or computer document that you've made that just tells them what to do. Like you can get a magazine if kids are listening still know what a magazine is, but there's AI. You could Google it. Like you can Google any workout. Any one workout probably is not bad, right?
Hmm.
But it's more than that, right? It's not just the sets and reps. Like I said, I'm not saying it's not important, but it's obviously like you have to be competent in your ability to organize and select exercises and prescriptions based on the desired outcome. Like, where are they right now? Where do they want to go? Reverse engineer it and lay those pillars in place to get us closer to the mark. But on the other side of things, too, is like they're a human being. You have to be able to communicate accordingly. You can have the best plan in the world, right? You can have the best program. I don't even know what that looks like. You have the best program in the world. If you can't communicate
Lots.
it, yeah, if you can't communicate it to actually elicit a response to the
Mm,
desired intent to elicit an adaptation, then what are we doing? You know what I
mm,
mean? Like you can have this thing all printed out and beautiful and like, what I say, look, do this and we'll okay, but how are they doing it? You know what I mean? Like if you can't communicate that, like if your communication sucks, sorry, then what are you getting paid to do? Like
mm,
we have to get results, but to get results, what's it going to take for them to get results? Yes, it's execution of these skills and prescriptions at the desired intensities and results with the right intent. But how do we get them to do that? You have to communicate and build a relationship of trust so that they would actually trust to do that versus fight you tooth and nail every step of the way. If you're, sorry for swearing, but if you're a dick, like they're not going to listen to you, and they're
100%.
they're they're not going to put the intent behind to get that the result you want.
100%. We actually love swearing on this channel, especially me.
You found the right
So
guy, buddy.
you can drop as many as you want. But actually, this is wild. So I'm obviously at the conference in the Olympic Training Center, and this specific example came up. And it's one of the coaches here refuses to use medicine balls and doesn't see the point when it comes to power output. So essentially, I took him through a couple power-based exercises that you can do with medicine balls. Again, power is force times velocity. So we can, again, I'm a big Olympic weightlifting fan, and that would be my first instance for everyone. But I imposed on him, what if that person refuses to touch a barbell, refuses to touch any sort of weight, but they're comfortable with medicine balls?
So
Like you
then
still have to get that stimulus for that athlete.
yeah, those are just tools. You can't become married to your tools. You know what I mean? Like you don't hang your hat as a coach on your tools. You don't. You could have. I honestly, we have interns stuff like that, and we try to help them be better chameleons. Like if you have let's say you're a strength coach, and you should be able to train athletes in a shoebox with one
Mm,
rack, a barbell, and a couple of dumbbells. If you can make that athlete better with those limited resources, then having all the bells and whistles just can make you that much better because now you can just scale what you're doing. But
mhm,
if all you come from and all you kind of hang your hat on is like, oh, look at all this equipment, this technology, all these things, like that's all well and good. But what is separating you from them Googling their own stuff or AI telling them what to do? There's a reason coaches get paid to coach, right? So you can't just hang your hat on a tool. And if someone doesn't like a tool, or it's not, that's all it is. It's a constraint you're putting yourself into. Okay, what's this person's ability? What's their comfort level? What's the desired adaptation I'm seeking for them right now? How can I get them using these tools I have? It's not just if all you have is a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail, right?
mm,
So you have to diversify your portfolio a little bit and not try to squeeze these athletes into a mold because that's where you're comfortable,
yep,
right? You got to kind of play ball a little bit here and help them adapt, knowing that everyone is individually unique. A lot of foundational principles, but individually unique. So you pick the right tool for the person you're working with, and you chase the adaptation with the tools you have.
I agree. So when I was at UW under Coach Mac, he put exactly what you've said in a way that made the most sense to me. And like you give the example of a shoebox, one rack, barbell, couple weights. He was working over in China, and with the mix up in translation and just them obviously not speaking the same language, they thought that he asked for all the equipment to be removed for the new stuff to come in. So he had sessions where he had physically no equipment, and he resorted to be like, okay, let's do manual resistance. It's like, so from that, like I took it as, okay, let me let me explore everything that I read now and like try and create programs with this specific implementation of what I've interpreted it to be. So like I went home and just like started doing a bunch of different like push pull variations, squatting, hinging, like our bread and butter to see if I could create these programs. And I think we've lost the ability, not everyone obviously, but we're losing the ability to think outside the box with the limited equipment because now we do have so much out there.
Yeah, I think things are getting, again, there's been a lot of progression in the industry. I think, again, coming from the private sector side, we can invest in resources, based on all the financials and everything else like that. But we kind of have I think, a good grasp, like the communication, the people side of things. But if we have these young interns coming in, and if all they know is technology and metrics, and that's all well and good, but if that's all they're hanging their hat on, we're kind of putting them into this box, like you said, and we're kind of keeping them there, and that's for no fault of their own. Like, how we expect them to grow? It's like they need the ability to have the freedom to fail, make mistakes, and be open-minded enough to try these different modalities and see how it works. Because again, like, you're going to have those situations where, like, if you're Olympic weightlifting guy and that's all you know, then you're going to try to have everyone do Olympic lifts. I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm saying, okay, that's all you have. That might be good for some, but then show me those that couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, you might hang your hat on a couple of success stories, like, oh, look at these three athletes. They're crushing it. Look at all the stuff they did. Okay, but show me the ones that didn't crush it, right? So
Hmm.
how'd you get them better? You know what I mean? Like, if they couldn't do the Olympics, it's like, okay, then you have to find something else to elicit a response. So diversify your toolbox, and be open minded. I think it's just being more open minded. Be open minded to these different concepts. And at the end of the day, break it down to the fundamental level. It's like, what kind of stimulus is needed to elicit an adaptation response? And then pick your tool accordingly that best fits that athlete and meet them where they're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's communicating with what we know, like having a good understanding of where your athletes are at, the relationship with them, what they're comfortable with, what they might be ready for and might not be ready for, and then proceed accordingly.
100%. Yeah, when it comes to this industry, I know that a lot of people can be dead stuck on their ways, and it's either this way or no way at all. And
Yeah.
it does hinder programs because, like you've just said, like show me the athletes that didn't succeed. Either they left or they just stopped going because like there was nothing for them to do.
Yeah, it's in situations like that, like whether you're in the collegiate side of things or high school or like that, like not everyone is gonna keep stepping up to the next level, right? For some in college, university, that might be where they end their career, and that's okay, right? But can they leave with a positive experience and some new skills, right? Because at some point we're all going to retire, we're all going to hang up our cleats, we're all going to hang up our shoes or skates or whatever, and the weight room stuff and all that does not go anywhere, right? Like, you still want to be healthier in life, you still want to be able to train later on in life as a working adult or whatever, a contributing member of society. So can you leave a positive impact where your athletes or your people have a positive relation with training? You know what I mean? And not just be like it was this job that they had to do. Like, can you find things that will elicit the results you need based on where they're at, but also things that they might actually enjoy doing that they can now take on to their next step, right? And not being so caught up in all the nonsense that doesn't really matter. Like, the only thing that's really going to matter for strength conditioning coaches is the results, which in this collegiate side of things is going to be wins and losses. Like, it's wins and loss business, right? So then finding things that matter, reverse engineering it to the impact you can make on those variables, and then work with the group you have, with the resource you have available, and be flexible enough to adapt to different individual needs, right? And that's not always, I didn't say that was going to be easy. It's simple, not easy. Um, but even for us, like, we're in the private sector, we have high school athletes, youth, we have college, university, professional athletes, international Olympic, whatever. Like, we have a whole bunch of them, and they all have different needs, different likes, different dislikes, right? Different body types and archetypes and all that kind of stuff. So we have to be very good chameleons and know that, hey, what Olympic lifting, this person might be, good fit for Olympic lifting variations. They enjoy it and we're getting what we need out of it. But for that person, might not be a good fit. And they're more, pro. They might need something a little more specific based on what they need. And they know their bodies better because they're already getting paid a salary. So it's kind of like meet them where they're at. Like, the guardrails just go from narrow to broad, and you have that creative ability to work within those guardrails. It's not just squeezing somebody into a mold and saying, do as I say because I have a logo on my shirt and I am coach. It's like, It's like, no, man, like coaches need athletes to coach. Athletes don't need coaches to athlete. You know what I mean? Like we got to kind of,
One of the, again, this is more from the European side, and so across here we don't really get called coach and have that athlete to coach respect to the same level, that when you really make an impact on an athlete, they trust you and they're like, hey coach, this is what's going on, what's your advice? So the first time I got called coach, I was like, this is strange, because like it was something simple that I did, but like that elicited that response from them, and I was like, it's kind of caught off guard, and I was like, holy shit, the fuck is this? What's going on? But it's, again, when you're able to break through that coach athlete barrier, obviously not being unprofessional, but like have that relationship where they see you as coach and they'll run through a wall for you, and it's it's kind of having that mind frame of these aren't just athletes that will athlete all their life. And Ray Zingler actually put this the best way possible, and it's like we're building humans, not just in the weight room, but like with the interactions that we have with them. And it's his thing is, I want my kids to, at the end of the day, have the determination to turn back in the office, turn the light off, and walk back out. It's like it's being able to go above and beyond, even though you can't be bothered.
yeah. No, it's, I think, like I said, it's, in my opinion, like this is a relationship industry first. Again, not saying that programming and coaching does not matter, but like you're dealing with humans. There is a relationship impact that has to be made first and foremost. Because again, if you have two coaches, one that has like this, perfect program in place, but their athletes don't like them, they don't listen to them, doesn't respect them, and you have this other coach who's well respected, their athletes will run through a wall for them, and his program is like mediocre. I'd bet bottom dollar that that guy on the mediocre program who can coach his ass off is probably going to get better results than the guy who, labels himself as this hierarchy type thing, like pound the gorilla chest moment, but he has his perfect program, but his athletes don't like him. So therefore, it goes back to they're not putting the intent behind the what. Like they will
Mm,
check the box. It goes out again because what we do, we love training more than athletes do right now. Athletes love to do the athlete in their sport, right? Like they're not supposed to love training. Some do, which is great, but like not everyone, and they're not supposed to
mm,
because their priority is going to be to their sport. So knowing that, it's like okay, like this know where our scope of practice lies, know where we start, like stand in this. We're just one component piece, a very important component piece, but a component piece nonetheless, right? So it's like anyone can show up and just check the box. Okay, I did what I was told to do, so I don't get in trouble by a coach, whatever like that. Like okay, I checked the box. Okay, you did the what, but how did you do the what? Right. And it's going to be that relationship. It's going to be that understanding why we need to do something and having them, receive that feedback and understand, have something they can hold on to that's objective for them that will then drive the intent of how they do the what. So, that's why I think you have to earn your digging rights, right?
mhm.
You can't have this perfect plan to build this amazing building if you don't go get the permit first. You can't put shovel in the ground, right? So it's one of those ones.
How do you, with as many athletes and different playing abilities, how do you make sure that as a program you're still impacting every athlete that walks in through that door?
We try to like get to know them on a personal level first. Like again, being the private sector, they're coming here to spend hard-earned dollars with
Mm,
us, right? So it's like, why does this matter to them? Like they're coming to us to solve a problem. Perfect. How can we solve the problem? Right? So we need to know more about them. Like what makes them tick? What are you aspiring to do? Like what's your background? All that kind of stuff. And then we'll go through all those, other quantifiable assessments as well. But we really want to get to know them on a foundational level as much as we can to just kind of paint a better picture of who they are, how they operate. So then we can be a better chameleon as a coach and say, okay, like this person might respond to a different style of coaching than this person. You know what I mean? Like some people are like, get in your face and they like that. They respond to that. Others might need a more nurturing approach, right? A little more withdrawn, that kind of thing. So it's really just learning how to balance. And again, that ranges from everyone on the youth, recreational level, high school, college, pro. Like they're humans, right? They have lives, everything else like that. They have likes and dislikes. Doesn't matter if you're an Olympic athlete or if you're a high school athlete. They both have things they like and don't like, and they operate different ways. So just get to know your athlete a little bit. What's going on in their life. Understand, because that might help give you some valuable information on how they might respond to your coaching ability. You know what I mean? Like They come in the weight room some days. You can just tell by, like, hey, how was your day going? And they go, oh, it was all right. Okay, that's information. Like, dive into that a little bit more, lean into it, right? Like, that's an opportunity to get to know them and pull back some layers. So I would say that's like the biggest thing is like, regardless of where they're at in this hierarchy, yes, they have different elite abilities, contracts, different pressures, different fears. Like, everyone's going through that. So peel back those layers and get to learn more about them first and foremost, because that's only going to make you a better coach and how you coach them. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what level they're at. Like, they're still humans. They have things. So
I had a conversation. It was actually on this podcast with Thomas Newman, and he said one of the most brilliant things. And since speaking to him, then he kind of explained where that was coming from.
yeah,
But on the podcast, he essentially said that sometimes you just need to give them 3 by 5 hugs.
that's good. That's a good one.
So that actually came from he's one of the like his mind is just essency. Like everything he talks about, like it's brilliant. But he was told by his wife that sometimes he can just be a little bit too straightforward. Like we know you have the best intentions, but word it this way. So I
Yeah,
came up with that 3 by 5 hugs, and I also think it's brilliant because sometimes you do just need to completely ignore the 90% session that you had to give them like a 90% RP for where they are. So
yeah,
instead of like 90% weight of 1 RM, give me 90% of your RPE right now. It's going to be lower. You'll get to that 90% a lot quicker. But I'm okay. You're moving. You're still doing some sort of session. I'm happy.
yeah. Like, because again, it's subjective feedback, right? So, subjective feedback. It's, if I want something, I would want subjective feedback to be higher, right? But again, that's going to change on the day because they could be 50% of what they're normally doing, but that could be a 9 out of 10 RP for them today. That's good. That is your subjective RP. I'll take that because that is where we're at right now. You know what I mean? Because, and I want those other intents to be at the required levels, but subjective RP as high as we can based on where we're at today. Meet them where you're at and go from there. Because if you cross that line, you risk them possibly getting hurt, beat up, whatever. And two, you've kind of, dissolved that level of trust where they were
Mm.
hoping, we're kind of, relying on you to kind
Take
of
it
meet them
easy.
where they're at a little bit. And you just, again, sometimes know your athletes. Sometimes they need to be pushed, right? Like sometimes they need to be, you know, coerced along the way, right? I'm not saying that's not always the case, but I'm saying, like, let's say you have an athlete that just never occurs with or something like that, then yeah, like, know where they're at and meet them accordingly. Because like I said, it's about them, not you. Put your ego
100%.
outside.
Oh yes, this is one of the things that I love and hate most about this industry is the ability for people to just not care for putting their ego aside, and it's, I mean, yeah, like it's no longer your time to perform. It's someone else's time to climb and to achieve what you've have or wanted to. Like I made it as a decent athlete, but now I'm more excited to help people get to the next stage, whatever that stage can be. It
Yeah,
doesn't have
absolutely.
to be like Olympics. It doesn't have to be like top tier international. But as long as they at the end of the day are like, yeah, I did my fucking best today. And I'm like,
Yeah, celebrate the wins, man. Like, you know what the percent, like, again, like, you know how small the window is for athletes to get to like the pro level or the Olympic. You know what? Like, it's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, right? So if that's all you're kind of hanging your hat on is like, oh, they have to be here. It's like, well, you're going to lose like 99.9% of them along the way.
mm,
So some of them, this might be their Olympics. Some of them, this might be their professional, whatever. Like this is where their level is right now. Like, give them a good experience, right? Get the results and help them drive a good experience along the way. So they can reflect fondly on their time with you and your training process and all that kind of stuff and help empower them in the future. You know what I mean? Like, the ego thing, it's like, dude, it's way more fun to watch our kids graduate from high school or college. Like, they get their degree, their diploma, they get their athlete honors. Like, it's way more rewarding, you know what I mean, than some of the other results. Because now you're like, okay, cool. Like this, it's just the next chapter for a lot of them, right?
mm,
But that's the human side of things. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole point. Like, find a win in the day for a lot of them, because these things, it matters to us, But in the grand scheme of things, like these things might not matter. You know what I mean? It's not life or death, man. It's we're coaching people in
Mhm.
physical health, wellness, fitness, performance. To do something. It's important, but it's not like this life or death situation. So finding the small wins in the days is it's at least in my eyes is going to be way more way more
Yeah,
beneficial.
it's exactly when you get like those calls or messages straight after they finish performance, and they
Oh,
give you a
huge.
whole rundown of what's happened, and you're like, "Fuck it!" Like
Oh, it's the best.
they know fine well that you might not be at work, but they'll text you anyways because like you're no longer that just a coach. Like
Yeah.
you're impacting them. You're like in their minds to tell you about it.
Yeah, it's way more fun. I love when our kids go back to preseason camp or something like that because again, a lot of them come back for the summer to train and then they go back to school. I love when they go back to school. Also, the first couple of weeks of school, they'll text me like, I got three chin ups today." I'm like, "Fuck yeah, man! You crushed that shit." You know what I mean? Like, tell me more, man. How are classes going? Are you still showing up to class? Let me show up to class, man. C's get degrees, but we gotta kind of raise the bar a little bit.
Yeah, that is also something that's been mind blowing me right now, and it's collegiate average GPAs, and sometimes how low the bar is.
I mean, you gotta play the rules a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
like
think.
and Sean Swetnam actually put it the best way, and he said, "School first, performance second." And I was like, that embodies everything that we were taught as a collegiate strength coach.
Yeah, it's like I said, you just C's get degrees. It keeps you eligible. I mean, I would argue that if you find a hardworking athlete, like it's hard to be so driven in one avenue that does not parallel into other avenues of life, whether it be like your relationships, whether it be with school, sports, whatever, right? Like it's very hard to find someone that's just so driven in one thing that does not parallel holistically across the board. So usually grades aren't too bad, but yeah, there's times you have to have a conversation like, listen, man, like just stay eligible, like show up, just do the thing, do the thing, put a little effort into it, like you put effort in some of the other things, and like, especially if it's like scholarship, like man, why are you risking your money? Why are you risking your bag, bro? Like all you had to do was read this book and like write an essay on this shit. Like just do that and you get your money, man. Like fuck.
100%. Um, this is something that I've sort of been getting really interested in talking about, especially in the private sector of things. And because you've got individual athletes and not always teamed come in at the same time, how do you phase everyone's programs depending on where they're in the season they are? Like,
Yep,
how is that all played out for you?
no problem.
I
So
could already see the sore head.
well, it's a deep rabbit hole, but simply put, like everyone that comes through our doors is on their own individual program, right? Like the program is catered to them, their
Mm,
aspirations, their all that stuff. So the individuality is forefront for the program that we built for them. That being said, there are a lot of similarities, right? Like we have a lot of volleyball players back this
the
summer.
fundamentals.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of similarities. There just might be simply different selections of exercises based on their archetype, position, maybe things like that. So there might be a lot of general concepts that might be the same when you look at the programs, but there are always like these little individual differences if needed based on where they're at, right? So that's number one. Everyone that's in our door, individual program, and it's a really cool dynamic because we have like blocks of time. Like today was 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. and we have another block coming in 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. And athletes can just come in anytime during that time. They'll grab the program card and our coaches get to work. But it's so cool that we do it this way. And shout out to Cressy Sports because they do it the same way. But it's a really cool environment because you could have like a high school volleyball player being in the same room as a collegiate volleyball player, being in the same room as a collegiate football player, be in the same room as a pro basketball player. And all these athletes are just working on their program where a coach is helping them and guiding them and doing all that stuff. But just the energy that comes from that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's a really, really cool dynamic. It's very unique. And we do a lot of team stuff too during the fall, right? Where teams will come in and they'll do their team plan and our coaches lead them. But I've always found, again, I'm biased being the private sector, but I'm kind of biased. But I find the individual like model we run way more fun. A, I think it's better programming that's catered to them. But B, because you're in like this individual environment, there's nowhere to hide. And the
Mm,
team in like team sessions or like where there's team lifts, you could be in your groups and working with your group and your squad that's doing the lift, but you can kind of hide. You know what I mean? You might have like a really good, athletic person who's very proficient in the weight room that's just doing the same weight as the person in their group because they're too lazy to add plates or they're not pushing themselves or whatever, right? So, and that happens sometimes. It's more just like, okay, like, hey, you could do more. Like, I've seen your best. Like, what are we doing? Oh, just didn't want to put plates on. I'm like, so it's easy for them to hide, but still, that's just the pros and cons. But for us, like in the individual side, like it's going to be like that individual aspect and that cool team dynamic atmosphere. And we've seen some great results, right? Like it's such a cool energy. It's awesome to see these kids and these and people in general. Like we have some awesome Gen Pop people as well that are in the same room. And sometimes they lead the way, right? You'll have like a pro player watching this guy who's like 45 years old, like sprint down the turf, and he's just like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "I know," you know what I mean? Like it's you always feel like, okay, we gotta like separate these blocks, like elite athlete block, Gen Pop block. I'm like, why? Like,
Yes.
like, why? Like, I think it's
Yeah.
great. You know what I mean? Like you literally see like a pro basketball guy or pro hockey guy interacting with just like an accountant, and they're just having an awesome conversation, spotting each other, getting out. You know what I mean? Like in their own stuff. You're like, that's it, man. Like that's the cool stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's the secret sauce.
I think so. I dove into that a couple of years ago, and me and my dad have a funny relationship because I always try and like tease him a little bit. Like I like to poke the bear in him. So like there was once where I heard something. It was something along the lines of, as we grow older, we lose the ability to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Not because we can't. It's because society tells us we shouldn't. So that triggered my mind. Like, yeah, why do people stop jumping? Like, what is it about the jump that?
I, I,
So from there, I was like, I bet you can't jump. So
yeah,
I've made sure to like get him riled up so he would do a jump, and he jumped, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know I could still jump that." I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah, we were talking with John Breyer the other day about this too, because really, like Manny, how many people after the age of I don't know 25, 26, like sprint and jump for fun.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like they play rec sports, sure, absolutely. But let's push it further. Let's say, okay, after the age of like 35. You know what I mean? Like it's just not societally normed. You know what I mean? Like people will go for a run. Like people in their 30s, 40s, whatever, they'll join a run club. Okay, cool. They don't join a let's go sprint and do plyometrics club. You know what I mean? Like it's just not normalized, right? Doesn't mean they shouldn't do it because we know, like as professionals, we know that power declines at a very rapid rate, especially as you age. So they're kind of like, we should jump and introduce different variety of drills to tolerate sprinting loads. And that's only going to help. Like I'm not saying to love sprinting, but I'm saying things of that nature can only be good for you in
yeah,
the right
bone
dosages and
density as well."
progressions. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's like, it's just not normalized if you're not an athlete. It's just so
yeah,
put in this box for like jump sprint. Oh, you got to be doing athletic type training. It's like, it's just training. We're just training. Like he's doing a squat, you're squatting. Is that like an athlete squat? Like it's just training, man. Like that's why this sport specific shit to me is always like it's
yeah,
good marketing. It's really good
yeah,
marketing. But no, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I'm doing this sport specific. Oh, like I'm doing like for soccer, I'm doing this banded shuffle. It's like they don't shuffle in basketball. They don't shuffle in volleyball. They don't shuffle like
No, not just that either. As well as it's because now you're adding load to something that they'd normally do without load. It can actually throw off technique.
dude, it's just like again, we're trying like and I was saying this the other day on our own show. It was like I think we've swung the pendulum just so fucking far to one side where it's like has to be the most specific position. I'm like a lot of our athletes will spend a lot more time in GPP, like general physical parameters, like become better movers, more you know what I mean, like more robust in that
Mhm.
realm versus just position specific. I'm trying to mimic the most relevant thing for this. I'm like, okay, there's a time, place, but we're splitting hairs, and that there's an earned right to that. And it's like, and you're right. Like, I'm not gonna fucking put a band on a guy's slap shot. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna have my basketball players throw a fucking weighted ball. Like, no. Like that's gonna that now you're impacting the mechanics of what makes them great. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You're altering their skill development of what makes them great. You're taking away from that now. But you're trying to chase this because you think you're chasing this other thing. It's like it doesn't work that way. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't, you know what I mean? Like live in our realm of like, okay, we're good at general physical preparation. And the more elite someone is, the more individual unique it has to be, but there's still relative weak links. Your job as a coach, when you get to, and especially because we're privileged in the private sector, we have that individual approach. My job is going to be to what is their goal, right? Let me pinpoint out relative weak links in their relative chain to help them express their skill on the court, rink, ice field, whatever, better than before. What does that look like for them? Like, what is their relative weak link? And then help us expose that weak point so we can hammer it with intent to then make it better, right? So they can express their skills at a higher level, not only against better people, but for longer durations of time. It comes down to building capability, right? Like our job is going to be building robustness, capability. Can I have repeat sprint ability, repeat strength,
Mm.
force output, repeat elasticity? It's not just one rep, one workout. It's like, can I do these things repeatedly for longer durations of time against better people, right? Like
Yep.
that's that general physical capacity, right? And you have to earn the right to become that specific. I'm not saying there's not a time and place, there is, but in the general sense, like
Hmm.
we've just swung the pendulum so far, especially with youth
Yeah.
athletes, high school
Oh,
athletes. Like,
yep.
like,
Again, I
what are we
always,
doing, man?
when parents ask me like what sports they should decide from, if I always say like a general approach is the best. Start your kid on three, four different sports, then narrow them down once they get morally. Like there's no point being a pro the first 2 years of their performance life. Be general, do as many sports as possible, become a true multi-sport athlete, because those movement patterns will transfer to all these different sports. Like my first sport was skimboarding. Like you have to run, throw a board onto the sand, jump onto it, and ride a wave. Like
That's crazy.
there's so much that goes into it, but any type of core control exercises that I do, I'm fucking solid because
Yeah.
I've had that experience of having to run, throw, jump, and fucking stay on.
Yeah, it's honestly like any kid that's young. Like again, we get parents that ask like, "Oh, could I kid like their kid's like 8, but are 8 years old?" And don't get me wrong, like we've worked with some really young athletes, but it's just like,
Which is a good thing. I believe
yeah,
that the younger the better because
yeah, it
so
it can be good, absolutely. It's just like let them. It has to be like driven through play, like because
yes,
they're so young, right?
game.
Because they're so young, they're going to learn. Just like you said, the reason they become such good movers and good athletes through that wide range of different exposures to sport is because it's indirect to that progression. It's like there's this arbitrary set of rules, right? Like you're playing soccer. Okay, you're whatever 6 years old. You're playing soccer. It's this arbitrary set of rules. Like don't cross these lines. Here's this thing. Put this over there. Go, and they will just
Mhm.
self-direct, and then but they learn they learn how to move through all the indirectly they're getting good at these skills, right? They're not just so focused on the structure, right? And then as they get older, you're introducing more structure, more like chaos, everything else like that. But that comes as you grow, and a big part of that is their development, right? And their ability to receive feedback and to then apply it. Because if you're that young, right, like if I try to have like a 5 year old follow like a rigid strength and conditioning program, right, like and there's I'm like, okay, I want this type of this. It's like for some that might work, but honestly, it's like, are they able to receive feedback and apply it? If they're too young or not, mentally evolved enough to do that at that age, it's like, well, then no. So you have to find some other ways that's maybe playful, game like, and then indirectly build those skills
Mhm.
because it has to be play based where they're enjoying it because they're going to do those things. You know what I mean? Not be so goddamn specific.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like so early.
Quick question: what's soccer?
Football with a think you mean yeah the American version of of football, you twat, like yes, don't get me wrong, like your way makes more sense, but you know
I
what,
love it.
here's why, you know why, because northwestern, it's because of the North American continent, that's why. I almost said because of the Northwest, fuck.
And that's
Almost
something I
fucked up
love
my
doing.
geography, oh my god, I almost fucked up my goddamn geography, bro.
That's American on brand.
Oh damn. And I'm
No,
Canadian.
so that's something I always love to do on this podcast, is because I do get so many Americans that they all, and like Canadians. I've had Canadians as well. Everyone says soccer, and I always like to throw that in just to be like, "Fuck you."
Yes. It's like, yeah, okay, that's all right. I got you. Yeah,
Um,
you got one.
to go back a little bit, you spoke about having same sports but at different levels. So you've got your recreational, maybe paired up with a pro on the same session. How have you seen like the mentorship side and the leadership side come out from that?
Oh, dude, it's immaculate. Because again, I think a lot of these athletes. Let's say you're like a college or a pro level athlete, right? Like if you have like a younger athlete kind of rip beside you doing their thing, right? Like I think this is this natural tendency that you want to like be an example. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And even if you're not directly trying to be that example, right? Like we like to tell our athletes, be selfish enough to find out what you're capable of, but selfless enough to empower those around you to do the same, right? So by default, you have this high school athlete that's working beside the other one, and they're like looking at each other, and like this guy might be giving some pointers, or just talking about their experience getting to that level. You know what I mean? Or even just simple like, "Hey man, that was a good set. Like, great job." Like you can just see their eyes like light up, and they get fired up, right? They're excited, and I think it works both ways, right? Like that younger athlete's like taking that, like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like I get to work and train beside this person," and the other and the pro or the college person's like, "This is awesome! Like look at this person get after it. Like this is I wish I was doing that at this age or whatever, right?" So it's really just I think a lot of people maybe in the private sector, they feel, and again, this is just my opinion, I think they feel they have to kind of box these times specifically for elite, whatever, youth. And that's totally fine. Cause I do get the logistics, right? Like your pro guys have to be focused in, having like some young athletes running around that don't know what they're doing could be, impeding on their session. Absolutely. And that's why we have like certain cutoffs for certain ages and we make sure that they're actually able to be in this environment. But, saying all that with our constraints, we've actually seen those fears went away instantly when we
mm,
saw just the dynamic of the room. And it goes back to that big culture aspect that's such a big buzzword, right? But that was it. It was the interactions that they made while all their think about it. They're all doing their own thing. They're all working towards their own goals in a shared space, right? And then they're interacting accordingly. They're helping each other spot. They're encouraging each other. There's getting to know about one another, become training partners. Like we have it's like this dynamic is now we have a whole room full of amazing training partners from all different
yeah,
walks of life and demographics, and they're all getting after it. So it's like all those fears we initially had of like not separating them based on their status of what we would derive as a status went out the fucking door, man. It's
yeah.
great. You know what I mean? It's cool.
No, that's something that really piqued my interest. So when I was an athlete, we had the same. Like I was 13 years old when I started, but if I stayed long enough, I caught the adults, like the first team, and like that was really cool because they would come in, they would warm up, and like they would just speak to you as if you're just one of them. Like I was 13, they're like 21 upwards at that time. So it's kind of like I've always loved that thing, and I understand the fears, but I do have to agree with what you've done.
Yeah, it's don't get me wrong. Like I say, we try to because we get it. Like high performing athletes, there is a time to like lock in and not be impeded. And we do I think we do a good job like setting certain cutoffs. Like we'll screen athletes before they come in. Like okay, like if you're in a room with these, like we want to make sure you're competent and understand like spatial awareness, all those basic safety constraints. We want to make sure that they're comfortable working in a room and can handle that kind of stuff. But once they're vetted, again, like some of them are like 13, 14 years old in the room, right? Like they're fine. You know what I mean? Like it's actually a great opportunity for them to come out of their shell, especially because you have athletes that come from
Mm,
like we do a lot of team training. So a lot of our athletes might come from like they're used to seeing us train them with their team, with people they know, they're familiar with. And then when they come, like let's say in the summer, season's done and they train on their own. So now they have their own program and they're working with us in our setting. Now it's like there's nowhere for them to hide. So it's like one of those like fight or flight, like do I do it anyway, regardless if I'm fearful or something like that? And they just put themselves out there and they try and they just become embraced by this amazing community of different athletes, different people, different levels. And that's like I said, that's like the secret sauce for all that stuff. Is like look at that person just come out of their shell. They're able to grow, get after it. They have a great group of training partners now from a variety of demographic ages, backgrounds, sports levels, whatever, helping them get to them where they're going to be. So, like for me, I've had all those same fears, like trying to debate whether to separate. And right now, I don't see any reason to change it because the dynamic is actually very, very positive.
yeah,
So why
yeah,
would I
the
change
culture is right. Yeah. So when it comes to obviously the private sector and individual athletes and not always having the groups, That obviously kind of makes it harder to manage training loads and just the ability to predict what they've got coming up. What's the communication like with their head coaches and the sports coaches, and how do you manage their loading systems?
Yeah. So it'll vary depending on obviously the time of year. So like we'll kind of go from like the off season right now and we'll just kind of transition a bit to the normal in season. So off season, like a lot of our athletes come back from wherever school or league they're from, right? So they might be a D1, they might be in the University of Canada, they might be pro from overseas. They come back, and we'll have that conversation with them, like, okay, like how's the season? Anything beat up? We'll kind of do like that, follow up check in point, just kind of see where they're at currently coming back. Then we'll ask, like, okay, like if you're going back to school, like what does coach want to see from you? Like, what was your exit meeting like? Like, what are some things that they want you to work on? What does that look like? Okay, cool. And then we will reverse engineer from there. And then same thing with the pro guys. Like, are we in contract negotiations? You know what I mean? Like, are we beat up? Are we getting whatever? And reverse engineer from there. And then throughout that off season, right, we just say, okay, like if these are standards your coaches want you to hit when you go back to school or go back to overseas, then that's the benchmark we're going to strive for. And we cater the periodization accordingly, and obviously stay in communication with the athlete to make sure that, okay, we're kind of hitting the benchmarks that we want to hit at the right times. And we navigate that chaos with them together. So the coaches are more hands off because season's over. Just come back and hit these marks.
You're
We're
good to
fine.
go.
Yeah, we're good. In season now, it's like, okay, cool. So as an example, we train like the Niagara River Lions. They're professional basketball players in the Canadian Summer League, and we're right in the middle of a season right now in the summer. It's like 12 weeks, 24 games. It's a lot, right? These guys are pro guys, like late 20s, early 30s, like a lot of stuff. So for us, like basketball guys, we'll track minutes. We'll track like training age. We'll track minutes, and we'll say, okay, like you're either high or low minute guy based on the last game. We'll do our force plate measurements just to get an idea of like fatigue and just kind of get some numbers. Again, that's not the end all be all. It's just one other tool in our toolbox being kind of used to compare and just see different things from a different lens. And for them, it's like, okay, we'll have a touch point meeting every week with the sport coach. He'll give us a breakdown of how guys are doing, and we'll give him our feedback on like how the guys are doing and individual variances, stuff like that. And then the biggest communications with the players, right? Again, these are pro guys. Meet them where they're at, like, and a lot of them are very in tune with their bodies and what they need, right? And I think from the pro side, at least where we guys or where our guys are, obviously we want to help them perform the best they can on the court in this example. But a lot of them are like, how can I keep playing my best in the court for another season, another year, another couple years, right? Like I want to be able to play till I'm 35 and make my contract, right? So it's like that longevity game at the same time. So a lot of it's going to be just we kind of dose things based on, okay, are we if we have a game on Friday, we just work backwards. Game day -1, game day -2, -3, game day +1. So we do a lot of variances based on the game schedule, and we have like these different buckets. I mean, it's okay for game day -1, it might be like an energized day. We have our game day lifts, we have like our work day lifts, our regeneration type lifts. So we have like these different quote unquote themes that kind of line up with the demands before the game, so we can kind of make sure that we're at the right level of like that dosage type mentality, like we're giving the right dose, the right time, just in time for the game. And then within that individual dosage, we're kind of bucking our athletes based on high and low minutes. Okay, today is like game day -1, energized day. All right, our high minute guys, you're going to do this. Our low minute guys, you're going to do this. And then we just tweak the exercise selections and variations based on their archetype, right? That's pretty much like a in a
Yeah.
nutshell type breakdown. Hopefully that was helpful. Uh,
No, with you obviously having contact time with their coaches, how did you open that line of communication? How did you get that coaches buy-in when obviously you're not part of the team system there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with this particular example, with our pro basketball guys, me and the sport coach have a good working relationship. It's a lot of trust, right? Like he's
Mm.
a fantastic sport coach. He wants well for the guys. He's a great leader. So and then he trusts us to do a good job as well. Like he lays out, he is the top of the hierarchy, top of the food chain. He has a vision and what that looks like. Our job is to help support him on that role, however that might look like, but he trusts us to do our small role to make sure the guys are taken care of, feeling good, and able to perform their best when it matters, right? So even the private sector setting, right, while we might not be like in a college or campus setting like that, with virtual tools, Zoom meetings, calls. He just stops in. Like it's really not too much different. It's really not that much of a hassle. At least I don't think so. And then with our club teams that are in season or in the fall, like we train a lot of volleyball teams, track teams, same kind of concept, right? We have like an email list of all the coaches that we work with. We try to have updates. We'll talk to technical directors and just keep in touch. Like, yeah, here's how some things are going. Honestly, a big thing with the high school team athletes is going to just be attendance. Like, it's
Mm,
ironic how that's like the number one metric. Like, Manny, I'm telling you, it's crazy how, like, dude, we have force plates, we have vault timing gates, we have VBT devices, we got fucking, we have all this technology and software. What's the one thing we're always tracking? Attendance.
yeah.
Because if you don't even show up, none of this shit fucking matters, bro. So that's more like the more
The
in-depth
logistics side.
yeah, that's really what most of those team coach touch points are going to be with the sport coach. Like, oh, how was it? How was lift day? Good. So and so, so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so did not show up. So and so, so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so all did. They did great. Here's the things we noticed. This cool, awesome. All right, moving on. So
Nice.
it's just kind of funny how like
That's the one metric. That's the most important one.
I'm telling you, like, I wish more young like strike condition coaches coming up, like, again, like, get exposed to all those different environments. Technology is awesome, but until you're in the trenches and you're like
Mm,
trying to have a conversation with a 6-year-old athlete, like, why weren't you at lift today? Oh, I had to study for my test. So your four stack numbers don't matter. It doesn't matter. Sorry,
yeah.
it doesn't. Attendance matters, man. Like, that's the one metric that we're just tracking the most of.
I think it's back to what we were talking about. It's like if they're not there either physically or mentally, your program's fucked.
Dude, it's do a great job and make sure everyone knows about it and just have them show up to do that. Like coaches need athletes to coach, man. Athletes don't need coaches to athlete. So again, you have to build that relationship, build that trust, help them understand why. Like, I always
Yeah.
like to say, aim small, miss small. It goes what, how, and that why is like the bullseye. If you understand why, it drives the how to achieve like the what better. You know what I mean? Like, using my team example again, they show up. If they hate lift, like, it's just not their thing, as they say, they'll check the box. I showed up. I did what I was told to do. Coach can't give me any grief. You're right. You did the thing. If you told me you went as hard, you did your best today, I have to believe you. You know what I mean? Like, if your baseline sprint, I don't know, your 10-yard sprint was like 2.5, and you're just like, I went as hard as I could, I'd be like, I'd have to believe you. Like, the number is crap, and I'm sure you're capable of more. But if you're telling me I have to believe you, you know what I mean? So that's just them checking the box, and that's a good foundational step. But how do we get them to understand why these things matter and relate
Mm,
it back to them, whether it be their own results, their own aspirations, or just their, like, help them find a love to learn to love what they're doing in here. And that attendance will cater by default, right? They'll come in and they'll be excited to do these things. So don't be wrong, like, we track a lot of shit, Manny. We track a lot of
yeah.
shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, force plates, VBT.
Attendance.
But fuck, man, attendance is always going to be number one. Like, that's, coaches want reports. Like, I want reports on how their jumps look and their speeds look and everything else. I'm like, out of your team of 15 people, here are the two athletes that we have data on. Here's the attendance of all the ones that didn't show up. You know what I mean? Like, but here's the two we'll give you. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
if we're again, because sport coaches might not know, they might not care. Like, they care about, like, you know what's their jump, what's their sprint, what's all these, how strong are
Mhm.
they, how, and absolutely. But we can't do those things if you're not having your athletes show up, and if you're enabling them to not show up, then
Yeah.
what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, you're putting the cart before the horse.
You kind of mentioned this, and it's a topic that I love to talk about, and it's buckets and bucket filling. But something that I've been speaking about recently is should all the buckets be filled?
Should all the buckets be filled? Well, I'll say this: we use bucketing in the most general sense, right? Like I said, we could, and there's so many ways you could bucket athletes, and I
Yeah.
get it because as strength coaches, we like systems. We love
Yeah.
systems. We love frameworks. We love skeletons. We love things we can just plug and play. And there's certainly times that we can do that, right? So bucketing is just one avenue we can explore and then take it a step further if we need to. But you could bucket based on whatever. Again, different coaches have different resources they have access to. If you have force plates, you could bucket athletes on certain metrics. You know what I mean? To monitor fatigue, peak power output, how deep you want to go down that rabbit hole is up to you. You could bucket it based on minutes. You know, like how many minutes this person get compared to their other ones? Like, are you a starter? Are you a bench player? Because again, like those slight differences are individuality in some regard. And then if you want to go deeper, you go in that bucket of the athletes in that pool and you just be more specific, right? I think there's a value in that. Absolutely, we do it too. It's determining like, okay, does this matter right now?
Mhm.
Like what matters and what doesn't really matter, right? I think wisdom in this is going to be it's not what you do, it's choosing what not to do and why. So it's like, okay, if I have an athlete, you know, again, we're general physical specialists,
Yeah.
right? Like, how can I build them more robust, right? Yes, I can do all these things with them, right? But is this what matters more right now? You know what I mean? Like, they just broke up with their girlfriend or they're having problems at home. You know, don't be afraid to like just because you put them in this bucket, like, well, you're hot, you know, you're a low minute guy. We got to go hard today. Don't be afraid to just pull them out and just be like, okay, well, you know what? Today we're doing this right now. That's subjective RPE. You know what I mean? So
3 by 5 hugs.
yeah, some days, you know what I'm saying? Like some days you gotta just dial it back a little bit. I absolutely I like bucketing athletes because you know I think there's value in that. There's some individuality to it, and it can give them the dose of what they need better than just this big blanket for everybody type thing. So I think bucketing is a good step from that.
Mm.
But to take a step further, meet them where they're at too, because again, that individual has individual needs. Right? They're different. Meet them where they're at, and you know, I think a lot of times, and again for bucketing, I think a lot of times is just to kind of satisfy our own ego a little bit too. Like, look at this data tray I have. Okay, I've bucketed this way. This that's great, right? But don't like just because we're breaking that mold now and putting them in buckets. Like you break them out of one mold, don't
Mm.
squeeze them into another one. You know what I mean? Like it's better than what it was, but just because you've leveled it down a bit, where now it's a little more individual for them. Again, don't be married to these buckets that you created arbitrarily based on these numbers. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be very hard to prove that that was the way. So don't
Mm-hmm.
be married to it. Like use it. I would say bucketing is another tool. Absolutely use it, but don't be married to it
Yep.
because right they're still human individuals that might need something different and don't be afraid to take them out of those buckets you put them in for the day and meet them where they're at. You know what I mean? Like we like to say move dirt some days with a shovel, some days with a spoon, but you're going to move dirt today. If it's a spoon day, grab the fucking spoon, man. Start shovel what
Yeah.
you can. You know what I mean? Just because I put you in the shovel bucket today doesn't mean you can't come out and have to do a spoon day based on where you're at. So I'm not married to anything. You know what I mean? Like we use all these systems and frameworks and we pick and choose what we need for what we feel is right at the time. But I'm not married to any of it.
Yeah. It's having a principle mindset where you know all this information, you know all these methodologies, these philosophies, and all this stuff, and you kind of have to pick out what you want from each and how that can help your program. Um,
Absolutely. It's expanding your toolbox. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So you creating buckets is expanding your toolbox, right? But don't be married to just because now you're going back to creating yourself to a hammer. You know what I mean? If you just kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit.
I think as well, like when I always like to refer to this, it's off season or pre-season. You'll squat your athletes to full depth. You kind of want to elicit those DOMs. You want to build strength at the very end range. But in season, we're going to do some core squats where you're not eliciting DOMs. You just want them to be a little bit more snappier.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like like let's be honest, as strength coaches, off seasons are in season.
Yeah.
Off seasons are in season, right? We love this shit because we have the flexibility where we just simply shifted these dimmer dials, right? Like in season, training gets dosed down a bit. Now it's like optimize it. Like in season is optimization, recovery, regeneration. Those things at the forefront to be able to perform the skill that they're being paid to do at the high level repeatedly, right? Off season, practice have dialed down. It's more flexible, so we have more freedom to experience regeneration. So now that shifts from optimization to adaptation. Off season is like adaptation time. I'm going to focus on stress because I have the freedom to regenerate from stress more so than I would in season. All right. Like one less stress from in off season is going to be I don't have school, I don't have practice, I don't have games. Great. All those stressors are gone. I have more freedom to work with adaptation over here. Great. So yes, you're right. Full range challenge, building robustness in these different planes of movement, right? For me, off season is about exposing weak points. How can I have my athletes expose what they're bad at so we can navigate through that together, right? Whether it be, okay, I want full range challenge. Okay, what does that look like for you? If you can't back squat for whatever reason, okay, we'll try a split squat, full range, whatever, right? Like you're picking the tool to achieve, in this example, full range challenge, right? And you could have more breaking type drills. You might have more eccentric duration. All those things now you can afford to do because you have the ability where they can suffer a little more soreness initially to then progress and have that, super compensation later on. In season, you're right. You're like, okay, now I have to give them the minimal effective dose, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can I give them that's going to be just enough to elicit a response without delaying recovery? Okay, so a lot of times it's going to be propulsive type movements, right? Like concentrically driven. In your example, you might use a position specific squat, like a quarter squat, right? Where they have bottoms up type thing where the range of motion is less, the output is more, right? DOMS is less, it's more propulsive in nature. Cool, right? You might still sprint, you might cut back the yardage, the dosage of how much you're doing. You might do more overcoming isometrics where the muscle length is changing very, very little, right? So all those things are just tools and knowing when to use them in your setting, right? And of course, the time of year and just knowing where your program stands during all that.
That's where the real value in having these principles comes from, is having the ability to check yourself. Because like, if it was up to us, we'd have them 3 days a week, all week, and weekends they'd fucking go for a run or some shit. But
Yeah.
it's being smart and building the mileage up and the load up in a way that's systemized to get them to be where they need to be. And like, I'm a big fan of, so they obviously have to last their full game, right?
Yep. Ideally.
Like their full performance, that should be a minimum. But
Mhm.
I wanted to always make sure that my athletes can go a full game and another half or another quarter. Because like, how many times have we seen at the end of their game they're blowing out their arse, and then it goes into overtime, and then what's that? What can they give at that point? So like, we have to make sure that in preseason we build this massive armor shield around them, so that when we're in season, they get chinked, but we can build that up slowly and
Yeah.
still maintain everything.
Yeah, we like to say it's like you're putting hay in the barn, right? Like you want to expect, Aussie especially, like you should be able to build capacities that will hopefully exceed that of sport. Like you should be more prepared because knowing that in season, for most sports, in season is the longest training cycle we have. We
Hmm.
can't afford to waste it. So in season, we have to take the opportunities to train when we can. Literally, like I think we had something on our story the other day where Riverline's game, their game day lift, if we can't get in the weight room, I'm bringing some bands to the court. Like before we do our team dynamic, we'll do individual warm-ups with bands, like overcoming isometrics with a band. Is it ideal? Probably not in terms of just the resources, but that stimulus is better than no stimulus I wouldn't have gotten for that day. So I have to dose them when I can, where I can, whether it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever I get that's on that day. You have to take the opportunities to train, knowing that there are that all these different qualities that we chase, right? Speed, power, strength. They all have different shelf lives. We have to respect that,
Hmm.
right? So how can we give them the dosage in season, knowing it's the longest training cycle we have? How can we dose them accordingly, knowing these things have different shelf lives? Well, it's never going to be perfect, right? Because if they're let's say they're busy that week or they have like multiple games, they may not want to come in and train and say, okay, well, we know that speed has a very short shelf life. How can I give them a dose, meet them where they're at, right? Take the opportunities to train when you can, where you can with them, right? And elicit a stimulus and go from there. It's not perfect. It's never gonna be perfect. That's the whole beauty of chaos of sport, right? So the off season, you have that flexibility to put more hay in the barn, knowing that when season comes around, the chaos that ensues and to navigate through that is going to be monumental. So you're going to have to dial back some things. It's okay. I might not be able to get this whole thing in. What matters most right now? And what do I have available? Meet them where they're at. Can I elicit that stimulus in some way using the tools I have to get a dose, right? Just enough dose. So,
With the way that you build out your programs, obviously I'll be coming from things that you've learned, heard, or attended a conference and that was spoken about. When you have like these new tools, how do you start experimenting with them to then add on to your program?
okay. So like new tools, like new models, like new technology, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So usually what we'll do is like as a staff, we'll always do it on ourselves first. Like we hang our hats on that. We'll never tell our athletes to do something we ourselves haven't done. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I'm not going to program something I've never experienced. Like I'm not like a lot of our athletes are able to use like weight releasers and hooks, right? But I made sure that I've done them proficiently before trying to coach them through it. Same with any new piece of technology we get, whether we first got our VBT devices, whether we first got the force plates, we practice on ourselves to have a better understanding of kind of like, okay, we don't know everything about this, but at least go through it so we know kind of what we're looking for. And then we get better over time, right? We're refining our use of force plates as well. Like some things that we're looking at earlier days, like, oh, maybe these things don't matter as much, or maybe there's more layers that fall underneath that might matter more. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's not enough to just do a counter movement jump height. Okay, jump height's all this. Like, yes, but how did they get to that height? You start like kind of dissecting it more as you learn as you go. But that's from practice and experience, right? So same with tools, right? Like if you're not proficient in Olympic lifting, that's okay. Then just don't have your athletes Olympic lift. You can train the quality differently, right? Whether it be loaded jumps or some other method, right? But if you want to have your athletes do Olympic lifting, then you better become proficient enough yourself in those variations so that you can help walk them through what they're going to experience. You know what I mean? So I think there is something to be said for leading from the front in the trenches. But that's how we would introduce these things into their programs, right? Once we had an experience ourselves, then we will start putting in their program cards. We'll have better conversation, and honestly, like that's still a learning point too, because now you might learn some things that when they're doing, like, oh, I actually never thought about that way. Let me try this, and then all of a sudden, you just evolve from there, right?
Yeah, well, athletes are the best cheaters as well when it comes to
Yeah,
moving. They'll find the
absolutely.
easiest path for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very good compensators, man. Like I get, they will find the shortest path to get to something, and there's admiration. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's almost like when they build a building, they don't really put the sidewalks in yet. They let
Yeah.
people just walk on the grass and see where the common pathway is, and then they'll just build the cement pathway there. Same concept. You kind of just watch them athletes go. You're like, oh, that's a better way. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
This is an area I love, and it's let athletes explore first. And I actually like to ask them, like, how do you feel that? Like, where do you feel that? Let's talk about like where that's coming from you, and then that opens a discussion of that self awareness that they can then bring to the table, and then that performance can be something that we track as well.
No, it's there's something to be said for that. Like it's a lot of learning, right? They're going to learn how to move differently. They're going to learn again. These are skills that we love that might be foreign to them, and understand they're just tools to help them get better in what they're seeking to do on the court, field, or rink, or whatever. Um, but yeah, we tell athletes like, hey, like what you feel, right? Once you learn how to feel the movement, whatever the pattern is, right? Like feel it. Tell me where you feel it. Okay, that's good. Let's pattern it so you feel it there frequently. Once you feel it, you can control it. You control it. You can load it. Then you can refine it. So it's just like a little layering process, right? But again, how my 6'5" basketball player front squats and how my 5'6", football dude squats or whatever is going to be a little bit differently. So it's like it's just a pattern, right? Like you're going to self navigate a little bit, and we'll either if that doesn't look good or you're not feeling the right places, then we'll find a variation to make it fit
I love
what you're
that.
trying to. Yeah, fit what you're trying to do, right? Like it's not just again, it goes back to squeezing the mold. I'm not trying to squeeze anybody into a mold, right? Like I'm not telling my 6'7" basketball player who's getting paid a lot of money to do what I tell them, like, oh, you got to squat this way or do this version. It's better for you. It's like, based on what, man? This guy's
Mhm.
getting paid already. You don't give a fuck about it. No, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, know your role. You know what I mean? Like, help him get better. Help him get better.
Yeah.
Not help the squat get better. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think that's another thing is like we want everyone to move textbook,
We're
but
humans,
people
bro.
are we're,
We're
at-
humans, man.
we're not textbooks.
No, we're not, man. You
Like, I,
program computers, you coach humans.
yeah, so like I always talk about research, and like as much shit as I give research, I do really like research. But like if we're really thinking about it, research is an average of an average.
Yeah.
Like they've not got every single human population for that specific thing in that lab.
No.
So they're taking an average of what they have and then coming up with a different average depending on their average.
Yeah, I love like research is I always crack a joke with because again I don't have a master's, don't have a master's degree,
I don't
but
know. Don't worry.
right, so it's funny because I'll have like a lot of my friends have masters, PhDs, and I will have like a beer or something like that, and they'll always and I'll tell them like, hey guys, research. I'm like science, eh? Just proving the obvious. It's like yeah, it's it's crazy because like as strength conditioning professionals, like it's not like we have to do like everything research like oh research says this therefore it's going to be done this way. It's like well understand where the research came from. Paul Quinn was doing overload eccentrics, like all that crazy stuff in the 70s and 80s. And the first study came out about eccentrics being beneficial in like 2008. So you think Paul Quinn was going to wait till 2008 to prove
to
any of
do
that
that.
stuff? Like, right? So I'm not saying disregard it. I'm saying it's not always going to. It takes time to catch up. So what you're doing in your own weight room as strength conditioning coaches is going to be, if you're documenting what your athletes do. Let's say you put this program together, you're documenting what they're doing, you're tracking the metrics, whatever metrics that matter to them, right? If it's being better on rebounds, or if it's track or rowing, like point A to point B less time, you're tracking all these things, how they got there. If you see a positive outcome, you're like, okay, make a note of it. And then if another athlete comes in with the same archetype and they would do the same thing again, and you see another positive outcome, you might be onto something here. Is it research proven? No, but it's within your relative
Mhm.
lab that you're seeing positive results. Okay. Are you going to just disregard everything to, no, research says this? Like, no, absolutely not. But research can help support you in doing what you're doing better. So it's like, use that as like a cornerstone, and build from there. Like you said, be principles driven. The methods are many, but the principles are few. Be principles driven, but don't be so caught up like, well, the research has to prove what I'm doing. It's like, it might take decades, man. It
Mhm.
might take decades for it to even, or prove you wrong. That's another thing too. Like, you could be doing this thing and have a positive outcome. The research comes out and says, well, actually, that's not it. Be open to be like, oh, okay, maybe I was doing it. Maybe there's a better way. Like, it goes both ways there, right? Like, research should support you, but you should be also being open to being like, okay, like this might not be the way I was thinking, or maybe
Mhm.
it worked for a different reason. You know what I mean? Like, maybe research said, well, it actually doesn't prove that. It does this. Oh, but you didn't know it improved that, but you were just doing the general thing, and you got, causation, correlation. It was because of, or just a byproduct of something else,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Perfect example is smoking. Terrible for you, but it has some fucking brain function.
Yeah, it's you know what I mean. So I would just say, take things like at a grain of salt. Research, absolutely, but ask better questions. So it's like,
Mm.
well, who was the study on? How
Yep.
are they
Look
doing
at the
it?
methodologies. Yep.
What was the timeline? What were the controllables in that study that they were accounting for? And is that practical for the people you're working with? You know what I mean? Like, they're in a controlled lab setting, their diet's controlled, this controlled. Okay,
They
that's a
step away from that research and it all goes to shit.
right. So it's taking the science evidence based and saying, what's the practicality of this? And again, it should support or even help improve what you're doing, and not just be reliant on that. Because again, you might just do everything. You might replicate the exact same program the research had, but it might be on the wrong population. Or you're like, well, I'm doing what the research told me to do. It's like, yes, but who is it on? How are they doing it? What was the factors? So it's a deeper rabbit hole. And I think having like take a grain of salt, be open minded, be open to being wrong. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, I think some of the smartest words somebody can say is, I wish to change my mind. Awesome. Now we can have a conversation. I would like to be wrong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay being wrong. Like, prove me wrong, and I'll be like, oh, I learned something today. Maybe there's a better way.
But in saying that, it's from a construction way of doing it. You can't just tell someone that they're wrong and not explain it. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah. You gotta kind of like, you gotta tone it nicely. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I like to say it's like a collaborative versus like aggressive like type thing. It's like, hey, like it's just, dude, just play the psychology card. Like, ask
mm,
questions like, oh, what made you come to that conclusion? Like, oh, how did you get there? Would it be possible that this could be another way? That's
yeah,
all. That's all saying the same thing. Like, you're probably wrong, and there's probably a better way, but you're not being an aggressive asshole about it. You're just,
yeah.
right, obviously communicate accordingly, but
It's having that open-ended communication style where you're wanting to say that you don't agree or something, but you're also open to hearing what they have to say, and if they're right, own it.
yeah, like, be open. Like you said, be open minded to certain things. Like, listen to understand, not just to respond. Like, it
I
seems like
think
pretty common shit.
that's actually one of the biggest lessons I've learned from doing this podcast. And it's when we're having open conversations in person, you don't panic and just say the first thing that comes to mind because that's just what your brain's done. Like you'll take time to think about a response and say it. So like being exposed to so many different conversations and views, I've learned the ability to take a pause, like a decent pause, think of what I want to say, and then say it. Because like I mean, you also do a podcast. So how often have you just like said the first thing because like people are just waiting for an answer?
Oh, bro. Well, trust me, man. Like it's been a learning experience, but you get better with time. It's just I think sometimes you get so rigid. Like you know, like I think if you're host a podcast, you want to be a great host. You want to like say the right things. So you get very. It's almost like a first date. You just get really like fucking.
Mm-hmm.
You get really nervous, right? You don't want to say the wrong thing, but in reality, it's just hey, like you're just trying to tell a story, learn something cool about this person. You know, pick up some. You know, if you could pick up some nuggets, great. Have a dialogue, and just you know give a damn and you'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like I think if you're trying to like if you have a high profile guest on or something like that, or someone that you would rank as high profile for your industry, I think some people might tend to get caught up in like this imposter syndrome where like they're trying to prove that they're on the same level, whatever that means, to that person. But then you're not making a productive conversation. It's literally just, hey, I'm trying to learn from you. I'm like having a dialogue. Like I'm conversing so I can learn something. It could be like the most basic thing. Like it's just good collaboration, good conversation. That's honestly like an art, right? It's an
Mm-hmm.
art. It's a skill
It's
practice.
and that's actually one skill that people are losing because of our phones is the ability to have a conversation and hold that conversation.
Yeah, I think phones are definitely can be very useful. I think it's, but I just think you'll never replace the human aspect. Otherwise, strength conditioning coaching will be replaced by AI in what, a couple of years. Like you need coach. The human aspect is what makes it take. That's why again, just tie it off with a bow. It's a relationship industry. People
Yeah.
with people.
What's one piece of advice that you would give strength and conditioning coaches coming into this industry or younger coaches?
Honestly, if you're looking to get into strength conditioning, a couple things. Be willing to cut your teeth a little bit. Like you're gonna know very little, which is expected, right? Be willing to put yourself in different environments, intern, find a good mentor, not just one, but multiple from different settings, because you could learn a lot from different people. And be like have a white belt mentality, right? Go in there and be open minded to learning new concepts and understand that you might not agree with what everything they're doing and you might have your own opinions, but time and place, go in there with open mind, write down things, and when it's your turn to shine, then you can apply those principles. But you're gonna have to practice the craft. I see too many young strength conditioning coaches coming to the field that don't even like to lift or practice these things
Mm,
themselves. I'm like, I'm not saying you have to be an elite athlete or elite lifter or sprinter or whatever, but you should have some love of the training process and actively practice it yourself. You know what I mean? Like, don't even have a conversation with me about force plates and VBT and periodization screens if you're my intern, if you're not even getting under the bar yourself and practicing some of these skills. Like, if you can't coach a squat for a 12-year-old person with a body weight squat, don't even talk to me about that conversation, right? And then make sure you're personable and ask questions and actually give a shit about the athletes you're working with. If you don't, like, for our interns, like, we don't have conversations about programming, periodization until you learn everyone's name.
mm,
Sorry. Like, well, who's that girl over there on the squat rack 6? I don't know. You better go figure it out then. Otherwise, we're not having that conversation. Like those human intangible traits, get that down pat first, because that's what's going to help drive your intent as you go further on in the career, right? Network, it's only going to help you. Like having better relations with the athletes makes you a better coach. Then you can have better networking skills because you're able to communicate with coaches that might be offering you positions, all those type things. So keep an open mind, white belt
mm,
mentality, ask lots of questions, document everything you're learning, find different mentors, and practice the shit. Practice the skills you're asking people to do, and then practice coaching them what to do. Right? Like, don't be stuck by a fucking textbook.
100%. I actually hate textbooks most of the time.
I think they're great. I think they're useful. Just again, don't get married to them. Like,
Yeah.
take information,
Um,
apply, 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 apply.
so I'm Portuguese, and in Portugal, there's a saying that translates to you can learn something from everyone, even a dumb person. You can learn not to be them.
There you go.
And like that's something I've always carried because it's like be open minded to have that conversation with whoever about whatever, but like also know what you can take and what you can't take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you for coming on today. If you want to guide people to what you've got going on as well, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Anyone that wants to get in touch, Instagram's a simple way. At Coach Tricks. That's a handsome guy right there. Look at that. Hey, there's me. You can also check out our facility. We're at ironperformance.ca. That's .ca for any Americans listening. So www.ironperformance.ca. Our Instagram is Iron Performance Center. You can see right there. Happy to get in touch. Like our staff are knowledgeable, full of information. We're here to help elevate the industry as best we can. Any questions, just DM me. I'll get to them. Yeah, we're here to help, man.
Appreciate you for coming on today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
Peace.